what we're going to do is basically, we're just going to copy these 4 files over here into our working directory. So we'll just call them the same thing. So we've got this, firstly, this generate accounts.js. This is the first file that we're going to be using. So remember, click that plus file over here. If you hover over it, it will say new file. You want to click that, and then you can create a new file. Generate accounts.js. That's what we're going to call it. And this is going to be the script where we're just going to run it basically, and it's going to automatically generate the accounts that we need. So I'll go over what the kind of code's doing. But yeah, it's basically what it's doing is it's just going to be creating the accounts, which we're going to then use for the multi-keys. So that's the first file we want to create. The next file we want to create is the create multi-key accounts. So again, the actual name of the file is really not important. As long as you tell the computer which file you're referring to, it always knows which one it is. I've just called it create multi-key account because it's creating the multi-key account. So you obviously want to call them, give your files names which have meaning. Now, to be honest, you might be like, oh, I don't know what a multi-key account is. It has no meaning to me. We'll go over that obviously in the lesson. But
Jake, quick question.
Mm-hmm.
When you opened Visual Studio Code, was your file already open?
Well, to be honest, so what I did was I had it on my desktop already, yeah. So I just dragged it and dropped it over VS Code. But Visual Studio Code does, if you've used it already, Visual Studio Code usually kind of remembers the last folder which you've opened. So if you haven't used VS Code since last week, it probably will automatically open it. But if you just for those of you who didn't do the drag and drop technique which I mentioned and just open VS Code straight away, you'll get popped up with like a blank screen. Click File, Open Folder, and then select whichever folder you had it saved in. Obviously, I won't be able to tell you exactly where it is because that depends on where you put it.
Yeah, that's fine. I clicked on the folder, I press open, and it opens the actual folder on that open file package. I've got node_modules.env const package. I don't know which of those ones I need to click on, that's all.
No, that's good. It's all of those. They all come hand in hand together.
Okay, cool.
So that means that you're in the right thing. So actually, so there was an issue last week where somebody was saving their files, just totally accidentally, of course, saving their files in this node modules. That's going to cause an error because we're not telling the computer to look inside node modules for that file. So all of the files that we work with need to be on this main level over here. The ones which I've just created are the generate accounts. Again, you can find that over here in the GitHub. So just call it the same thing and then paste in the code for that. Then I've just created this multi-key accounts.js, which is going to create us the multi-key account. And the next one is going to be the threshold account. So there's a slight difference between threshold and multi-keys. We'll get into what those are. But again, you go plus over here, new file, and then create threshold account.js. Make sure that we're finishing it off. Hi Giuseppe, how you doing?
Hi Jake, thank you.
Good. So just a little update of what we've been doing. You haven't missed too much. I don't know if you've seen the previous video, but if you haven't, then what I'd say is stay to the end and we can kind of do a little catch up. But today I'm just going to be getting straight into the coding, and if you're at a stage where you're able to crack on with it, then we can go for it together. If not, I'd recommend just watching, and you'll still obviously learn a lot about the threshold and about the multi-keys, which we're going to be covering. So okay, back to the code. In this create threshold account, again, I'm just going to copy and paste this create threshold here. I'm just going to copy that and paste it in. Also, for those of you who weren't here last week, then this white dot at the top of where it has all of your tabs, if it's got a white dot, it means it's not saved. Now, if it's not saved, it means the computer's not going to be able to run it correctly. So you always want to make sure you're pressing Control and S if you have a Windows, or CMD S if you have a Mac, and that will cause them to save. As you can see, when you actually do save it, that white dot disappears. So that's the create threshold account file. Now the final file which we're going to do is this test file. This is how we're actually going to test whether this is how we're going to test functionality that threshold keys and multi-keys offer. So yeah, finally we'll just call it test new account .js, and we're just going to paste that one in there as well.
I don't know if it's your end or my computer. I don't know about anyone else, but I can't currently see you doing anything on your screen other than like the half of the Chrome thing being open and half of the Visual Studio. So when you go and copy something from Chrome, I can't see it, and currently I can't see you pasting anything into the thing. I don't know if it's just me or if it's happening for anyone else.
Can you see the? Because I do only have half of my screen. Can you see the Visual Studio Code bit now?
Yeah, I can see Visual Studio Code. I just don't know where you copied the first thing from, because I can't see that when you go onto that tab. It might just be me. I don't know.
Okay, can you see the Chrome tab now?
Now I can. Yeah. And I can see your mouse moving on it.
Yeah, so I'm copying this. So I'm just pressing copy raw content, and then before this was just an empty file. So I just pasted it in. Sorry, I'll go. Cool. I'll right click and then paste. I was pressing Control V, so it's probably hard to see.
I'll give that a go. Cheers.
But okay, so can everyone confirm that they have made these 4 files? So there should be a create multi-key account, create threshold account, generate account, and test new account. These are the 4 new files that we'll be needing today. I'll leave it a few minutes, but if everyone has done those, then we can get started with actually creating the accounts, and obviously a bit of the background about what all of the individual things are. But yeah, as you can see, there's quite a lot of code at the moment, so it's just unfeasible to write it all down in one session. But guys, yeah, please, if you have questions like Robert, okay, sorry, I just in the chat. It was generate multi-key threshold and test. Yes, that is it, Max. Max, have you got did you install have you got node modules showing up in your thing, and did you follow it from the previous lesson? Yeah, I've got Node.js. Okay, and do you have right? Okay, so for those of you that maybe you didn't see the last lesson, if you have Node.js, it means it's good. That means you can do this. However, what we need to do before now, if you were here last lesson, we would have already done this. If not, then make sure that you've initialized an npm repository. So I'll show you what I mean by that. It's when you go into the terminal. If you don't have the terminal up already, you can go on to terminal at the top of the screen and then new terminal. And what you want to do is press npm space init. What this does is it initializes an npm repository. That's npm just stands for Node Package Manager. And then you press enter. At the moment, I've already got one, so I'm not going to do it again. But you just keep on pressing enter. I don't know if Max, did you do this? Did you do npm init from following the previous video, perhaps? Not yet. Okay. Right. Okay. So do that now. Yeah. So type in npm init, and then what you want to do is you just want to press enter. Keep on pressing enter until and I hope I didn't start in mine. No. Okay. Cool. So then keep on pressing enter until you see yourself back in the interface where you can type things again. You have to press enter maybe 8 times. Once you've done that, I'm going to type that in here, just so others can do that. So you want to do npm init, press enter times, and done it. Cool. Okay, so Max, the next thing that you want to do is you want to do npm I at hashgraph /sdk and also .env. And what this will do is it actually then installs the relevant packages from the internet, because obviously what we're doing over here, whenever we're saying, whenever we're doing over here and we're saying require blah, 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 what we're actually doing is we're pulling it from a package which we've downloaded. Now, these packages aren't natively installed in our computer. We need to download them from the internet. So you want to run this script. There'll probably be like a loading bar which comes up. Do that, and then you can be able to continue, and you'll be up to date. There is one little thing that you need to do, which is create this .m file. So that can be done when you press this plus button here and just type in .env, and up with like a little kind of a little settings icon, this will appear. And in here, like, okay, this is bad practice sharing the private keys. You should never do this, because it's just a test account. It's not too big of a deal. But this is actually where we pasted in our developer testnet account stuff. So over here on the over here, when you have your private keys and account ID, this is basically what we've pasted over here, and we've called it account ID and private key. What .env does is it's a secure way of storing variables without them being seen by other people. Of course, they're being seen by other people right now, but when we go into the code, you'll do it in like a secure way, and it's safer basically. So yeah, I hope you can do that, Max. I'm going to keep going forward. And for those of you who have been able to download all of these accounts and copy them into the file, then the first one that we're going to do, all right, well, let's go to the slide. Okay. So, right, what we're going to be doing this lesson, we're going to basically be looking at threshold keys and multi-key signatures. We're not going to be doing scheduled transactions just because I don't think there's going to be enough time. And then, yeah, so resources where to look for if you want to do some stuff outside of the session. And then we'll be going into what threshold keys are. Like I said, we'll forget about scheduled transactions, and then a little glimpse into next week where we'll be doing NFTs, and we'll be doing a lot of more hands-on coding with the NFTs. They're actually a lot easier to create than all of this threshold key stuff. So next week we'll be able to make our own NFTs, and that'll be pretty good fun. So firstly, what is a key list? Now, a key list is, as it kind of the name suggests, it's a list of keys, which basically it typically when you send a transaction just from one person to another person, you only need to have one signature. This is an example of what we did last week, where we sent an Hbar transfer transaction, and we sent it from your account to my account. In those instances, you only need to have one signature because it's just like it's a single person's account. Now, a key list is when you require to have multiple signatures in order to send one transaction. So when more than one signature is needed to send a transaction. Now, key lists need to be associated to an account when an account is being created. You can't just, if you already have an account, you can't just suddenly make that a multi-key account. You have to create a new account which is programmed in such a way that it will have a multiple key list. And what does this allow for? Well, it allows for joint ownership, really. Now, this is proper. I think an example of this could be perhaps, let's say, for like a family account. If the husband and the wife want to have a joint account where you need to require both signatures to send a transaction, this makes perfect sense. Alternatively, it may be for business or larger corporations. Then you want to have all of the directors on board with a particular thing in order to sign a transaction. So basically, in my opinion, what the multiple threshold key list is it brings this functionality beyond the scope of just peer-to-peer, beyond the scope of just one-to-one. It actually allows for larger kind of scalability and a wider range of use cases. So that's what a key list is. Now, there's another type of key list, which is called a threshold key. which is very, very similar with one small difference. So like with the normal multi-key list, you still need to, it still allows you to create an account, to have an account which requires multiple signatures in order to submit a transaction. However, the difference is here is that not every single one of the keys on the list is required. So with the threshold key, what you're going to do is, again, you create it with this thought in mind, but you might say, okay, let's say there's a key of, let's say there's 5 keys in the list. The threshold may be 3. And what that means is that only 3 out of the 5 keys are required to send a transaction. So for similar purposes, it allows for joint ownership. However, I think this particular way is probably more applicable for things like businesses where maybe it's not crucial to get everybody on board, but as long as you have a majority, then you'll be able to continue with the transaction. So we're going to be covering both of these, and we're going to be testing them out both. And I hope by testing them, you can really see, you can really understand what functionality they're offering. I will mention what a scheduled transaction is. It's not something we're going to be covering in this particular lesson, but basically what a scheduled transaction is it's when you want to queue a transaction. So it's when you need to have multiple signatures for a transaction, but you cannot have them all signed at the same point in time. One thing you will notice in this code when we are in our test section is we're signing the transaction all at the same instance. Well, not technically at the same instance, they're happening milliseconds after each other, but it's all happening in kind of the same attempt. Now, again, in the real world, this is not necessarily going to happen. Sometimes you're going to need to wait 24 hours, 24 minutes, 24 days for somebody else to be able to sign for it. So that's what the scheduled transaction really offers. It allows you to queue a transaction and then wait for all of the signatures to sign it before the transaction gets executed. So they're also pretty powerful. Hedera Hashgraph, they're still kind of building this feature in, so it is integrated, but I think they're planning on making it even more flexible in the future.
Sorry, Jake, just to pause on that topic. Is it possible to send like a standing order like you do with direct debits? Like you set up a monthly scheduled transaction, is that possible?
So I think at the moment, I'm pretty sure and I'll have to double check this. I'm pretty sure you can only do a scheduled transaction for like a maximum of 30 minutes. Or I mean, there's definitely a fixed time frame. It's not the actual time frame isn't too long. We can have a look at the documentation actually and see what it says there. But essentially, yeah, I mean, you would be able to once in like an ideal world, you can definitely do things like direct debits where you issue a transaction which needs to be signed, and it can be signed by multiple parties. And then yeah, you could do it. For example, okay, you need to do it by the end of the month. But let's have a look here. So it says expiration time. That's one of the things that you can pass in. Create a scheduled transaction. Expiration.
So let's say you were paying Hbar for your Wi-Fi monthly contract. You could set that up to send the payment every month to your broadband provider or something like that.
I think it would probably be more. It probably in that instance, it would probably be more the broadband provider send it to you, and then you have the option to pay it now, or you can pay it over the next 24 hours or whatever. But yeah, so this has got like a coming soon flag next to it. This expiration defaults to 30 minutes. Basically, yeah. This is so. Let's say, take for example, let's say you've got an account which has a multi-key threshold, and you require to have 5 signatures in order to sign for that transaction. If you only have 4 of those people available to you right now, what this will be able to do is it will mean that you can send a transaction with 4 signatures, and then it's on this scheduled transaction is on the chain. It's on the hash graph, and then when that fifth person is available, he'll be able to sign it. That's basically what it is. Now, the actual utility behind it is certainly not limited to just one use case. I mean, people will be able to be as creative as they want. So it could certainly be like, yeah, when it comes to direct debits, standing orders, things which you don't want to force someone to do it instantly, give them a bit of time to do it, or perhaps even when you need to have multiple people signing the same thing. I think that's where they become most common, because if it's just one signature is required, then you can just do it at an instant if you're only requiring one signature. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
So yeah, but I mean, let's say if you have your Wi-Fi order and it's being signed by a parent's joint account, then yes, this would actually be a perfect use case of it, because you need to have the two signatures. You need to have the mother's account and you need to have the father's account both signing it in order to send it off. If it's just one person paying for it, then just a normal transaction is sufficient. But yeah, so let's get started. We've already kind of set up the code to test for this. So now we're just going to create. Well, firstly, we're going to need to create. Sorry, there's a bit of background noise. I hope it's not too loud. So firstly, we're going to actually need to create enough of the private keys in order to actually add them to our list. At the moment, we've only got this one account ID and private key, and that's the developer account. Now, obviously, if we only have one key, then we're not going to have enough keys to make a multi-key list. So that's what this generate account thing is for. This generate account thing file is going to create an account. So it's going to firstly generate the private key. That's what this line here does. So it does generate the private key. Then it creates the account and it sets the new account's key with this generated public key. Look, you don't have to worry about kind of it too much. It is a lot of it's probably just like, oh, we're just random words. But hopefully by explaining kind of what each step is doing, that would be sufficient. Then we're setting the initial balance at 100. That just means we're giving it 100 Hbar, so that this account has 100 Hbar. And just to confirm, it's going to be the client account who executes it and submits it. This client account is going to be the one who gives it the balance of 100. It's not like you can just magic out a 100 balance out of nowhere. So yeah, so then this is the account create transaction. Then we're saying, okay, execute it with the client and submit it to the network. This is where the fee, the very small fee, gets paid. Obviously, it's the very small fee plus 100 because we're sending it 100. Then we're getting the receipt, because from the receipt, you can get the account ID. Then we're going to console log out what the account ID is. And then we're going to append it into our .env file. And what that's going to do is it's just going to basically automatically add it into this file so that we don't have to worry about doing it. But yeah, I'm going to run this script now. I hope you guys are at a similar point where you're able to run it as well. To run it, we do it in a similar way to how we ran the files last time, except last time when we wanted to run the send transaction file, we did node send transaction. Obviously, if we do this, it's going to call this file. So does anybody want to have a guess what we're going to need to say node, what we're going to need to run in order to get this generate accounts file?
I'm going to say either the amount that we want to send, or we need to put in our private key, but I could be wrong. I'm
talking about, so we're already putting in our private key actually in the code itself. So what I meant is, so when we wanted to send this transaction and actually run this file, we had to do node and then the name of the file, node send transaction. And when we press enter, that would then cause this file to run. And as you can see, I've just sent the transaction. I've just executed this code. Now, we're not going to be referring to this file, but we are going to be still needing to run it to execute it. So we need to use node, and we're going to need to specify this particular
generate
file.
Accounts.
Generate accounts, exactly. So we want to do node generate account, and double check that you haven't done typo in here, because let's say you've done, let's say you've written generate account. So let's say you've written generate account, and then you're trying to run node. Let me zoom in. Actually, I think this is a bit of feedback last time. But yeah, if your file name is called generate account, and then you're trying to do node generate account, it's going to cause an error. It's going to say module not found, because computers are very, very picky, and you need to get it exactly right. There we go. So yeah, I'm just gonna, well, because I've changed the name to generate account, I may as well just say node generate account. And when I press enter, it will now begin running the code and actually generating it. So as you can see, we've saved 1 out of 3 new accounts into .env. The new account ID is here. Then it did the second one. Then it did the third one. And if I check over in my .env file, as you can see, it's been populated with all of these new keys and new account IDs. So if you guys give that a try now, hopefully, if everything's been set up properly, it just works. And then we can actually get on to creating the threshold account and creating the multi-key account. So I'll give you guys a bit of time. Please give that a try, and yeah, ask me any questions if there's any issues.
You mind if I share my screen quickly, because I executed something and now it's not working?
Yeah, share your screen.
Right, cool. That's the window. Yeah, let me know if you can see it as well when it comes up. Yeah, so I just copied exactly what you typed in. I don't know if you typed this one in as an example, but I press enter, then it come up with this, and I can't actually type anything else in, like it won't.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, so which file are you executing then?
So I think you were in generate account, right?
I was, but which file have you just ran?
So I went into generate account, and then I typed in node send transaction, which I don't know if that was following what you did on your screen. Then I just hit enter.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what account you've got open on your Visual Studio Code, because you've written in node send transaction. You're telling the computer to run send transaction.js. So that's that's why it said if you click on send transaction.js, this is the code that you're running. But that's fine. So you've just topped up my account with 100 fake Hbar. Basically, this is a really good point, because actually a lot of you you'll be in this situation when running the correct code. So you're basically, if you click on the terminal,
this one, yeah.
Yeah. Now press Control C.
Oh, sick. Right.
Control C.
I did Control C, right? Let me do it again.
Okay. Well, there we go. Yeah. Cool. So now you've hopped out of it. So you need to basically, when you run the transaction, you kind of stay in this node environment, and you need to escape from it in order to try run another transaction. So now you should be able to, if you type in node and then type in generate account.
Does it need to be in the same capital and lowercase as the other JS?
Yes, it does. Actually, I don't think it does, but it should do. Yeah. I don't think it technically does, but generate account, yeah. And press enter.
Okay, cool. Nice. Cheers for that.
Yeah. Well, let's have a. There we go. Good stuff. Okay. So now you want to press Control C, because it's finished running. You want to press Control C a couple of times to escape out of it. There we go. Good stuff. Awesome. So, Rob, if you actually go over to your .env file, you will see that, there we go, you've got all of these new account IDs. But yeah, so guys, I'm going to share my screen again.
I'll end my screen. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Now, if could be security.
Did you end my screen share? Because I can't end it. So.
I think I ended it.
All right, cool.
Just by going on my
yeah, that's cool.
Max, so I've just seen your comment. Yeah, so it could be used for extra security for sure. You could even have, it doesn't need to be a joint account with like a husband and wife, for example. It could even be your own account where you want to have extra layers of security and say, okay, this is my ultra secure account and it requires all of my other 3 accounts in order to sign it. Because if one person has your key, then that's all of those funds gone. But it's far more unlikely for one person to have all 3 of your keys. So I didn't even really think of that, but you could have some sort of like mega secure account in which all three keys are required. I'm trying to open it, no typos. Max, do you want to maybe try share your screen and we can go through yours? Because I know that you're a little bit behind because you didn't you weren't at last lesson, so there may be some sort of configuration issues. Cool. Yeah, okay, right. So basically, all of your stuff is in this file called Jake's code. So what if you go on to click on your terminal. Now type in ls and then press enter. Just press enter a couple of times because you're right. Okay, type in ls now. LS for Sierra. There we go. So this is basically what you've done now is you've listed. So you're in the folder name hashgraph.js SDK intro main. You've now listed all of the files which are children of the file you're in. Because none of those are actually gen account, what you need to do is firstly save it. So there's the white button, there's the white ring at the top of your thing. So just press Control F on that thing there. Okay, that's saved. Now on .env, do the same thing. Cool. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to actually the first thing that I'd do is I'd just basically drag and drop all of your files outside of Jake's code and drop it into the nice. And just exactly. Yeah, and then do the same with the .env as well. There we go. Sweet. Okay. So now you should try running the code. Try doing genac.js or whichever one it is. Just press enter actually again because you're in some. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's looking good. Nice. Cool. Yeah, so that's this is a similar issue as to what Dylan had last week, where he saved his file in the node_modules folder. And what that meant is that when you're telling the computer to run this file, it's not looking inside the node module, it's only looking one layer down. So you need to be, again, computers are very, very picky, and you need to be in the exact correct folder in order for things to be run correctly. Has anybody else been able to successfully do it? Tom, have you been able to? Nice. Okay, sweet. Tom,
sorry, Jake. Just going back to the generate accounts, the actual code itself. So line 15, it says async function generate accounts amount equals 3. So if we change that amount to 5, would we generate 5 keys then?
Exactly. So what I've done here now, that's a really good question. Thank you for asking, because this is basically an iteration. If you guys are familiar with Python, which I know some people from my chemical engineering course are in here doing Python, this is basically it's just an iteration now. So what I've done here, this amount equals 3, is I've set this as like a default variable. If I go into this actual account and I say 10, then it will do 10 iterations, because it says, okay, when the iteration is basically doing it, it's starting from 0, and then it's increasing 1 every time. So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, until and only for numbers less than the amount is it iterating. So for example, we've got iteration, we said amount equals 3 by default. This just means that when we don't pass anything in, it has like a default argument. Now, if the reason why it's 3 here and less than 3 is because the computers start counting from 0. So we're going 0, 1, 2. These are all going to work. When I is 3, 3 is not less than 3, so it's going to fail then. But yeah, that's basic. That's spot on, Dylan. If we go 10, and we can actually test it out. If I put this in as 5, and then I run it, it's going to basically just print off another 5. Yeah. So as you can see, all of them are totally unique. All of them have their own private key, and now we've got loads in here. This will cause an error though, because we've now got things of the same variable name in this .m file. So I'm just going to remove those for the time being. But yeah, Dylan, really good question, and exactly right, exactly what you thought was spot on. Okay, I'm just going to crack on to the next bit now, which is actually creating the multi-key account and then creating the threshold key account. Now, these codes are almost identical. They're almost identical because, like I kind of said in the introduction, fundamentally they're very, very similar things. So if you actually look at the code, then like you really won't see any difference, except for in this new key. So over here in the multi-key, obviously I've called the variables slightly different names. That's just because, like I said, with the file names, with variables, you call them what they're kind of referring to. So over here, we've said new key list, and then we're just passing in this key list, which is this list over here. Now, in the threshold account, it's got 1 extra argument. So we've got the same line, except it's got key list, and then it's passing in another argument, which is the threshold. And the threshold is just this argument over here. So we could do threshold 2. We could say threshold 3. We can't say threshold 4 just because there's only 3 keys in here. So you can't have like a threshold of 4 if there's only 3 keys. That would cause an error. However, if you had more keys, then you would be able to do that. Now, the reason why I've done it threshold there is just because it's nicer to have it as a variable which you can then enter in over here. And by default, I'm saying that the threshold is 2. So just to clarify, what that means is that if you have 2 out of the 3 signatures, the transaction will be executed. So yeah, these scripts should also be ready to run. Now, for this particular script, I haven't implemented the code where it automatically adds into your .m file, but it will console log out the account ID. So once that happens, well, let's get it to that point first, and we'll go on from there. Now, to run this code, we do the same thing. We just say node, and then this is called create multi-key account. So we're going to say create multi-key account, press enter, and it console.logs out the multi-key account. Now, once I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to manually paste it into my .m file. And I'm just going to say, okay, so the multi_key_account is equal to, oh, not to that, is equal to this. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it in. And then I'm going to press Control and C in order to escape out of it, so I can then run this function over here. Node create threshold account, enter, and we get the threshold key account is blah, blah, blah. So yeah, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say threshold key. Actually, I think, so we need to have a look in the test new account and see what it's referred to over here. Right, okay. So this is what we need to call it. We have to call it this because this is what the code's referring to. So we need to call it multi-key ID. and we also need to call it threshold key ID. That's just because, like I've said before, computers are very picky. You need to call them the right variable names, and because obviously we've got the code written out, we need to confine with what we're saying it's called over here. But yeah, if you guys could do that, and hopefully it comes to success, you should create 2 new accounts, and then we can go on to testing it and seeing what happens when we try different things. So I'll walk through the test code and what it's actually doing once we get to that point. But for the time being, I'll just let you guys have a few minutes as well to hopefully get to this point, put it into your .env file, and then we can go on to the next section. So yeah, again, any questions, just give me a shout and we can work through it together.
In the .env file, line 14, was it threshold key ID and then put an equals before I put the number? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. You need to do an equal sign, exactly, and make sure that it is called the correct. So if you want to copy and paste it, you can copy and paste it from this test new account, and the variable name corresponds to whatever comes after process.env multikey ID. This is basically needs to be exactly the same case and characters as that.
Can I close the other tabs and just keep env and test new account open?
Yep, you can close them. If they have a white dot, then save them and then close them. But yeah, you can close them. And yeah, just to confirm, next week's lesson, which will be on NFTs, that's it's gonna be a bit more hands-on. There's not so much code required when it comes to a good thing that you said needs to be saying one different. Yeah. So there'll be a bit more actual coding next week. That creating NFTs is surprisingly far more simple to understand, and yeah, we'll be able to go through that together. But I think asking you to code all of this stuff is definitely a bit of a reach. Okay, look, there's not been any more questions, so I'm just gonna assume that everyone's at a stage where we can crack on. And finally, what we're going to be doing now is we're actually going to be testing the functionality behind these keys and proving that they're really doing what I've said that they can do. So over in this test new account, and as you can see, Robert, I just closed all of my tabs because I don't like having lots of them open. I say as I have 100 tabs open over here. But yeah, so we're importing all of the relevant stuff from the Hashgraph SDK. We're importing our client. The client is the thing that pays for the transaction fee. And just to let you know, the transaction fees can all be found on the Hedera website, but it's really, really cheap. It's basically things like to send a Hbar transaction, you're looking at 0.0001 cent to do, or $0.0001. To do like an NFT mint, it's like $0.005. So it's very, very small amounts. Now we've got this main function, which is just basically trying out all of these different combinations. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a transfer transaction. This is similar to what we did in the first lesson, where we sent a transaction from our client to just a random account. And as you can see, the format of it is almost identical. So we're sending one Hbar from this multi-key account. Now this multi-key account is just, it's just the multi-key ID which we've got in the .m file. So we're sending one Hbar from there, and we're going to be sending it to, this is just my testnet account. If you want to swap it into your own testnet account, you can, but it doesn't really matter. I've just done it on mine so that we can then actually have a look on my wallet. And then we can see like the transactions come through. So I'll get them up from there. But yeah, this is also the really cool thing about, and this is like when I started developing on Hedera Hashgraph, just being able to see things happen like so quickly This is a testnet account, by the way, test at the top, and 0.358195, same one as over here. Just being able to like see things happen in real time so quickly, I found quite stimulating. So we've got this basic stuff. I mentioned at the beginning of the lesson, the sum of all of the transfers need to add up to 0. So we've got -1 plus 1 is 0. This set node account IDs, you don't really need to worry about that. That's specific to multi-key signatures, so don't really worry about that. Then we're doing the actual signing. So we're adding the signature and we're adding the second signature. Now this, we're sending it from the multi-key account. And this is the one where we've given it 3 signatures and we said it requires all 3 to sign. So in this transaction, we're only adding 2 of the signatures. What do you think is going to happen to this transaction? Do you think it's going to be successful or do you think it's going to fail?
Unsuccessful.
It's going to be unsuccessful. So we've told it that we've created this account saying that it requires all 3 of these keys in order to successfully send a transaction. If we're only adding 2 signatures, we're going to get a failure. So the next test, what this next test is doing is it's doing the same thing, except we're just adding the 3 signatures. And obviously this one's going to execute properly. The next one that we're doing is with the threshold account. So before, these previous 2 ones have been a multi-key account and from the multi-key account. This is obviously the one where there's no threshold. It needs to be 100% of the listed 100% of the listed keys. Now for the threshold account, we're going to try it. Now I don't know if you guys remember, but in the threshold code, we said we're going to give it a threshold of 2. So 2 out of the 3 signatures are needed to sign. What we've done over here is we've only added 1 signature. So we're saying just add 1 signature, and this is obviously going to fail. Then over here, we do 2 out of the 3 signatures, and this will cause a success. So I'm just going to run this code, and everyone do it alongside me as well.
I've just got a quick question, Jake. With the with the threshold account, so say it needs like 2 out of 3. Does it have to be 2 specific people of the 3, or can it be any 2 of the 3?
It can be any 2 of the 3. So at the moment, I've specifically done just key 1 and key 2. However, we can do key 1 and key 3, or we can do key 2 and key 3. Okay. So it's any combination. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a really good question.
I was wondering, like, it's a little bit like, I don't know if it would work with smart contracts, but just in the case of like actual contracts with like kind of work, if like you have a client that is so busy and you send over a contract for work that you need them to sign, you have a threshold account where they have 2 business partners, but obviously if it was 2 signatures of specific people and you couldn't get to that really important guy because he's busy, like it would work with just having 2 of the other guys as opposed to him. So that's kind of where that
exactly. And this is exactly where, like, I mean, the actual the scope in which you can think about things where this can apply is massive. It's so, there's so many different options in which you can apply this to. There may be times, for example, if you've just got like a small business, then you want to use a multi-key account, because if there's only 2 business owners, then you want to say, okay, we both need to agree on it. However, if you scaled up massively, and like you said, there's multiple different partners, of which some might be on holiday, some might be away, some might not be active, then a threshold will be more suitable. And with that as well, you can really customize the threshold to be as creative as you want. You can say it needs to have 10 signatures and 2 thresholds, and a 2 threshold, or 10 signatures and a 6 threshold. So you can basically have as much flexibility as you want. And actually, Hedera Hashgraph have quite recently added an even more powerful feature where you can do like nested keys. Now, that's not something that I've even got into before, so not something that I can teach for sure. But basically, it's like that you can have like a key hierarchy where you can have threshold keys within multi-keys and multi-keys within threshold keys, and basically just increases kind of the possibilities with it. But yeah, look, Robert, that's a very, very good use case, and well done for highlighting it.
Sorry, Jake, just to go back onto that point about nested keys. So just so I get a better understanding of what that functionality is. So you're saying that maybe 3 CEO or signatures could be made the equivalent of, let's say, 5 senior management signatures. So that would be the hierarchy. Would that be something like what you're talking about?
To be honest, Dylan, I'm really not too clued up on it on the whole thing. It might be something like that. It may be where there's like a kind of a weight where three executives is the same as like 5 directors, for example. It might even, I think what it is it's okay. Let's say you've got a CEO signing, so and then within that he can have his own 2. I don't want to say something that's totally incorrect. I can reference the documentation, and Dylan, if you want to stay on after the call, we can actually spend a bit of time maybe looking at it together.
No problem.
Because obviously, I'm cautious of the time now. So for those of you, who just want to see what happens and crack on, then run this code, and we'll see 4 transactions which happen. 2 of which fail. Okay, actually, before you guys do this, what I'm going to recommend is typing in clear into your chat, into your box, and pressing enter. What that does is it just clears off everything, because sometimes the previous code can be quite distracting. And then just run the node test new accounts and press enter, and we can have a look at when it's been successful, when it's failed, and what it's telling us. So the first transaction, where we're trying to submit a transaction with insufficient signatures, as you can see, it says receipt for transaction contained error, status invalid signature. Now that's because we only entered in 2 signatures, we required 3. The next one, where we create a transaction with all of the necessary signatures, it's given us a success code of 22. 22 just means success. So the transaction's been successful. That's good. That's because we added the 3 out of the 3 signatures. The try submit a transaction with insufficient signatures using threshold key. Again, look, this is when we had a threshold of 2. However, we only gave it 1. And for that reason, contained error status invalid signature. And then finally, where we submitted a transaction with sufficient signatures using the threshold key, we got a status of 22. That means success. Now, Robert, to prove your point about it can be any key, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this from key 1 to key 3. So, Max, I'll get back to your comment. Failed after this.
Max, I think he was talking about what's going to happen when we don't have enough signatures responded, and then he put it in chat.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. Okay, so anyway, so Rob, what I've done now is I've just gone. I've said, okay, key 3, and we're going to sign the transaction with key 3, and we're going to add that there, and this will still result in a success because we've got key 1 and key 2. Just to make things a bit, I'm going to call that sig 3.
Do you need to change the? Oh, okay, cool.
You don't need to. Like it could be sig SDF, as long as they're the same. That as long as they're the same. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to run the code, and the final transaction will be a success because we've got 2 out of the 3. We've got the threshold. As you can see, it's come out as a success, even though we've signed it with the 3rd key and the 2nd key, as opposed to the 1st and the 2nd.
Yeah, that's pretty useful, to be honest.
Say that again, Rob, please.
I just said, that's pretty useful, to be honest.
For sure. And like I said, like the scope in which you can kind of apply this to is massive. There's so many use cases. Like I kind of only really, and obviously so do you, Rob, I only think of it in terms of the business context, but I think when it comes to just like social, even the ability to have things with perhaps your friends, like it totally opens up new windows which have never really been possible. Maybe having like, if you're going on holiday, you'd be able to set up an account like this, well, as easily as we have done now. So you could even do it, particularly if you're going on holiday with a few of your mates. don't know, maybe you do something like that. Maybe that's an app idea for some people. Do a little, after this course, you'll be able to create your own holiday spending app. I don't know. But yeah, okay, let's finish off with the PowerPoint, because I've got a nice goodbye slide. And yeah, so what have we got? We've done that. Resources, let's get started. Collect signs. We've ticked all of these off. We've done that. And next week, what are we going to be doing next week? We're going to be looking into what a non-fungible token is. Looking into what a non-fungible token is, yeah. Is it more than just digital art? 100%. I don't even really look at NFTs as digital art, to be honest. I'm sitting next to a guy who does a lot of NFTs. He's currently building his own NFT project on a new network called Aptos. But yeah, I mean, NFTs, they kind of get the rep they get. They're popular for being digital art, but the actual use case and utility far goes beyond just art. So we're going to explore that a bit, and then we're going to be creating an NFT. So if you guys could email me an image with an NFT that you'd like to use, we can use that, and we can actually create an NFT with that image. If not, we can find it on the day. But yeah, I think you've all got my email. Hopefully you've all been getting my emails. I presume you have if you're here. And then yeah, send me an image which you'd like, and we can use that to create your own NFT. Send it to your own Hedera Hashgraph account. Has everyone here got a Hashpack wallet, by the way? If you haven't, please download one. Just because it will allow you to kind of see the stuff that's happening. No, okay. So yeah, basically it's just a Chrome extension. Head over to the Chrome store, and you can you'll be able to install it very, very easily, and then set up a testnet account. I think it's good just because it means you can actually tangibly see what you're doing on the Hashgraph, and for example, you send a transaction and then it receives in your wallet, and you can actually see, oh, okay, look, over in my history, we've got all of these. If I refresh it, there we go. We had this one Hbar transfer. This is partly me, partly you guys. This is good. Okay. So it's been nice. You guys have been successful. Awesome. So yeah, this is all one Hbar coming from you guys and me sometimes. But yeah. So yeah, get a Hashpack wallet, and then you'll actually be able to see it kind of happening all yourself. And finally, yeah, okay, that's okay. You can copy it with this link. Let me copy this link address, and I'll paste it in the chat so you can go straight to it. Thank you very much, Jake. Very informative. Nice, Dial. Were you able to have some success? Because I know that you just joined now. So if you want to stay on for a bit longer, maybe we can iron out any of the mistakes. Or if you've nailed it all, then awesome. And that's impressive. I'll wait for you to reply. Finally, yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.